All right, so today we're diving headfirst into Skinwalker Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch.
You know, the place in the Utah desert, right? With a rep for, well, for seriously strange stuff. Like, we're talking lights in the sky, cattle mutilations, that whole 9 yards.
Like the Wild West Zone Bermuda Triangle.
Exactly. And me. I gotta admit, I'm a sucker for a good mystery. So we're cracking open this new book, Unveiling Skinwalker Ranch. The author, Joshua Montgomery, I get this, he's a cybersecurity expert by day and a paranormal investigator by night. Seems he really went deep, digging into research, local stories, even those kind of out there theories to try and, I don't know, like decode Skinwalker Ranch.
Trying to connect hard evidence with stories told for years, it's an interesting approach.
For sure. But before we go full X-Files, let's rewind a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Skinwalker Ranch really got its start with this family, the Shermans. They bought the place back in '94, hoping for, the peaceful ranch life. But things took a turn.
A turn is putting it lightly. Their experiences were intense. They reported cattle disappearing,
No.
only to show up again. But mutilated organs missing, drained of blood. It's the stuff of nightmares.
Seriously.
And it gets weirder.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't stop there. They said they saw strange lights, UFO-type stuff, and even creatures that seemed like immune to bullets. On top of all that, their equipment kept breaking down like something was messing with it on purpose.
Okay, so not your typical day on the ranch.
Yeah.
But here's something that gets me. The Uinta Basin, where this ranch is, already had all these stories about UFOs and cattle mutilations passed down for generations. So I'm wondering, did the Shermans, see what they expected to see because of those old stories,
So the million-dollar question, right? The power of suggestion, especially in a place that already feels mysterious, is incredibly strong. We often see what we expect to see, or even what we're afraid of seeing.
Yeah, that makes sense. But no matter what really happened, these stories got the attention of this guy, Robert Bigelow, a hotel big shot, totally into the unexplained. And not just casually interested. Bigelow was serious about UFO research. He started the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDSci for short, poured tons of money into it, hired top researchers.
And when he caught wind of the Shermans and their stories, he bought the ranch in '96. $200,000 cash, brought in scientists, set up all this high-tech surveillance equipment. Basically, he turned the whole ranch into, a paranormal investigation lab.
He wanted to bring hard science to a field that's often overshadowed by speculation. And what's really interesting is that NIDI, they didn't just stop at eyewitness accounts. They combined physics, biology, even anthropology, a really multidisciplinary approach.
So they weren't messing around, huh? They were determined to document and measure whatever was going on. Did they find anything, like any solid proof?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. Two of NIDI's main investigators, Colm Kelleher and George Knapp, they wrote a book in 2005, Hunt for the Skinwalker. And this is where Skinwalker Ranch takes a sharp turn into, well, government secrets and conspiracies.
Wait, hold up, government secrets. What does the government have to do with a ranch in Utah, haunted or not?
So it seems this book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, somehow landed on the desk of a Defense Intelligence Agency official, James Lakatsky.
Defense Intelligence Agency.
And this is where it gets wild. Lakatsky was key in getting millions of dollars, government money, to investigate, you guessed it, UFOs.
Hold on, you're saying the government threw millions at studying UFOs, and it might be because of what happened at Skinwalker Ranch. That sounds like something straight out of the X-Files.
Right. And it gets even weirder. Lakatsky said he had this really strange experience at the ranch himself, and when Bigelow told then-Senator Harry Reid about it, well, it was enough to get them both interested in looking deeper.
Okay, my head's spinning. You've got a high-ranking government official with a possible paranormal experience. Next thing you know, boom, millions of dollars for UFO research. This is huge. But were people, skeptical? Did they actually buy into all of this?
Oh, definitely. Skepticism is crucial, especially with this kind of stuff. Robert Schieffer, a well-known skeptic, he said that the Shermans might have exaggerated their stories, maybe even made them up. He pointed out that people lived on that ranch for decades before, and nobody said anything weird was going on.
So Schieffer thinks it was a hoax. Like, maybe they just wanted to make some money off a good ghost story. But what about Bigelow and his fancy research? Surely someone would have called him out if it was all fake, right?
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
James Randi, another big-time skeptic, he gave Bigelow his Pegasus Award, which isn't really a good thing. It's supposed to be funny, but it's basically for people Randi thought were promoting junk science. He really went after Bigelow for funding paranormal research.
Okay, so we've got intriguing stories, government involvement, and a whole lot of skepticism. This is what's so captivating about Skinwalker Ranch. It's like the perfect blend of mystery and debate. But if we take a step back for a second, it raises a bigger question. Maybe the government's interest wasn't just about ghosts and aliens.
Now, that's an interesting thought. What else could have been going on? That's a good question, right? Like, was there something else about Skinwalker Ranch that they were really after? Could be the location, maybe something to do with the land itself, or even just, I don't know, some other research opportunity that had nothing to do with the paranormal stuff.
Right, maybe they wanted the land for some reason and all the ghost stories were just like a smokescreen.
Yes.
Or maybe it was the people they were interested in, like the Shermans or even Bigelow, to see how they'd react to all the weirdness. It's like trying to figure out who's watching who in a funhouse mirror maze.
And that's what makes Skinwalker Ranch so fascinating. Because nobody really knows the answers. We can just keep guessing, filling in the gaps with our own ideas.
Yeah, and people love a good conspiracy theory, am I right? Okay, so we've got all these paranormal reports, the government throwing money around, and then the skeptics chiming in. What happens next in this Skinwalker saga?
Fast forward to 2016, the ranch gets sold again. This time to Brandon Fugel, a real estate guy, but also someone known to be, well, interested in the unexplained.
A real estate mogul buys a haunted ranch. That's not exactly your typical investment property. Was he going to build like a paranormal resort or something?
Not quite. Fugel's been pretty quiet about his plans for the ranch. However, he has definitely increased security and partnered with the Hutchings Museum Institute to do even more research.
Increased security. For a ranch in Utah, what are we talking? Laser beams, tripwires, a moat filled with holy water?
I think they're sticking to more traditional security measures, but it does make you wonder what they're trying to keep out, or maybe even in. And as for the research, the Hutchings Museum Institute, they're using some really advanced tech. Thermal imaging, ground-penetrating radar, they're going all out to map any weirdness on the property.
Sounds like a high-tech treasure hunt. What are they hunting for? Alien artifacts, a portal to another dimension?
Wouldn't we all like to know? Fugel and his team are keeping their findings pretty close to the chest, but they do say they've recorded some unusual electromagnetic readings and other things they can't really explain.
Of course they have. It wouldn't be Skinwalker Ranch without a little more mystery, right? That's what keeps us coming back for more. Like this giant question mark in the desert just daring us to figure it out. And speaking of figuring things out, seems like everyone wants a piece of this Skinwalker puzzle.
Totally. Skinwalker Ranch has become way bigger than just a place in Utah. Now we're talking books, documentaries. There's even that show on the History Channel, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. It's everywhere.
And don't forget that porcupine tree song. It's crazy how this one place has just captured the imagination of so many people. It's like Skinwalker Ranch is a mirror reflecting our own beliefs about ghosts, government cover-ups, all that good stuff.
Which brings us back to that question from earlier. Why are we so drawn to Skinwalker Ranch? What is it about this place?
Is it the thought that something truly unexplainable is happening there? Or is it just the thrill of the unknown, even if the answer might be something we don't want to hear?
Maybe it's realizing that some things are meant to stay mysteries. That maybe just looking for the answers is just as important as actually finding them.
It's like the old saying, the journey matters more than the destination. But even though the journey is definitely interesting, I can't help but wonder, what's really going on at Skinwalker Ranch?
And that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
It makes us question, it makes us explore, it makes us search for answers. It reminds us that the world is way stranger and more amazing than we usually give it credit for.
It's like staring into the abyss and letting the abyss stare right back. So as we're wrapping up our deep dive into Skinwalker Ranch, I'm left with this question. After all this, is Skinwalker Ranch really one of a kind? Or is it just, a good story that's gotten bigger and bigger because we want to believe in something beyond the everyday?
It sticks with you, that question. Is it the land itself, like some kind of paranormal hotspot? Or, and this is where I think it gets really interesting, is it us? Like we project our own hopes and fears onto the unknown.
Because the stories we tell, they're powerful. We've got decades of people saying they saw this, they experienced that, each one adding to the whole Skinwalker legend. But how much of it is shaped by, I don't know, by the stories that came before? Like, are we influenced by what we already think we know about the ranch?
It's a loop, right? Every news story, every investigation, it just adds to the myth. Then you add in the way our brains work. We look for patterns, try to connect the dots, even when the dots are like barely there. We want explanations, especially for things that don't make sense.
So we fill in those blanks with UFOs, with things from other dimensions, with whatever gets our imaginations going. And suddenly this ranch in Utah is a doorway to, I don't know, who knows what.
Exactly. And the more we talk about it, the more we investigate it, it starts to feel real, even if it's mostly real just in our minds.
Which isn't to say that everything about Skinwalker Ranch is, easily explained away. There's definitely strange stuff happening there, stuff that science can't quite figure out yet. But maybe the answer is something we haven't discovered yet in physics or geology or even how our own minds work.
Could be. Or maybe, just maybe, Skinwalker Ranch is there to remind us that we don't have all the answers. That there are still mysteries out there, things that challenge everything we think we know about the world. And maybe that's not a bad thing.
Maybe it's a good thing. It makes us question, it makes us explore, it keeps us searching. It reminds us that the world is a lot stranger and more amazing than we give it credit for.
Exactly. And that sense of wonder, that willingness to be open to the unknown, that's something worth holding on to, no matter what you think is really happening at Skinwalker Ranch.
So to everyone listening, next time you hear a weird noise at night or you see something you can't explain, think about Skinwalker Ranch. Remember that the world is full of mysteries. And sometimes the best adventures start with a simple question. What if?